All right, everyone, welcome back. Here once again with the Hammy Show, breaking down an incredible win over Ole Miss. A lot of times it looked like Georgia was out of it, but as we know, there's no give up in this Georgia team. Georgia always finds a way to win. But we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Hammy, what were your just overall impressions, overall thoughts on the game?
First, what a game. Like you said, I mean, holy cow. Like that is all-time game in Sanford Stadium. So fun to be there. So fun to be in that environment. I think that was the most electric Sanford Stadium has been this year and probably in a long time. I mean, the games that come to mind that match it are Tennessee 2022, maybe LSU 2013, the blackout game. I think it's up there. So it was an electric atmosphere. I think the fans answered the call. Ole Miss shut us down there for a second, and then Georgia quickly got back into it in the fourth quarter when we came up with those big third down stops and then the fourth down stop that inevitably ended the game. So, what an offensive performance. I mean, Gunner, that's the immediate name that comes to mind. Obviously, he's playing quarterback, so he's the star of the show anyways, but when the lights got the brightest, he shined too. And I thought it was so awesome to watch him. And maybe this is a little biased and a little, I don't know what you want to call it, but to watch Carson Beck throw 4 interceptions the night before and then Gunnar Stockton do that against a top 5 opponent, that was pretty awesome. And I can't complain. So, hell of a performance. And I'm super excited for the rest of the season after watching an offense like that. And then if we can put together 4 quarters of that defensive performance that we had in the fourth, if we do that for an entire game, man, this team's going to be tough to beat come down the stretch.
Absolutely. I think Bro 60 put out a post. Speaking of which, credit to them on the stripe out. I know it could be improved, but hey, it still looked good. I
Yeah.
think I think most people would agree that it was definitely a good starting spot. But they put out a post that said 2013 LSU 2.0, and I think that's probably the perfect comparison for this game. But moving on a little bit from that, what do you see as Georgia's biggest strength through 7 games of football? What's their biggest strength so far?
I mean, it's hard to say anything but Gunnar Stockton. Like, I think he has taken on the personality of Coach Kirby Smart and how Kirby coaches the game. That's how Gunnar plays. He's cool, calm, collected, and then you put some pads on him, and you see a little fire in his eyes. And I think he has been the biggest strength of this offense. He's been the biggest strength of this team. He's been the leader of this team, and it's been really fun to watch because he was so doubted upon in the preseason and after the Notre Dame game. And even though he won us an SEC championship after coming in that second half, he was largely counted out. And it's awesome to watch because no matter how hard he takes a hit, no matter what happens to him in a game, he's not frazzled. He's just Gunner. And I think it's awesome that you know, he's got that short term memory loss that so many quarterbacks and quarterback coaches talk about, offensive coordinators as well. If you throw a pick, you just get right back out there. If you get sacked, you just get back up and go back to work. And I think that's what Gunner's persona really has been all season long. And when the lights shine the brightest, like I said, he's answered the bell every single time. I mean, I go back to the Tennessee game. That one and this one felt very, very similar in the sense that we needed a massive performance from our quarterback, and we got it. 26 for 31, 289 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. You can't ask for more from your quarterback. So, yeah, the Heisman whispers start. I'm going to ignore that for right now because I just want Gunner to keep being Gunner. And I think he will continue to do so. But other than just Gunner, I mean, I think Bobo has really proven himself as an elite play caller. I think our offense is firing on all cylinders. I think the screen game that so many Georgia fans hated has been the most effective game of our offense, the most effective facet, if you will. And I think our offensive line is coming into form. And then as we saw in the late in the game, our defense can be that elite defense that we thought they were preseason. Now, like I said, we have to put together 4 quarters, 2 whole halves of a complete defensive performance in order for that to be certified, rectified, whatever you want to call it. Like, I think this defense has that firing capability to be one of the best in the country. Those third down stops were massive. And like we said, you had the home crowd behind you. But, man, I mean, And it's so funny because Georgia fans were the most fluctuating, flaky fans. But that Bama game happens and everybody's down and out on Kirby. They're down and out on Schumann, on Bobo, on every single person on the staff, on the team. And then you get a big win like this, and it's like you forget all about it, and we're right back into loving some Georgia football. So I'm stoked, man. I really, that was one of my favorite games I've ever been to in Sanford Stadium. So it's hard not to be excited, looking forward to the rest of the year.
Absolutely. And I had somebody also say the same thing, that it was the best game that they'd ever seen in Sanford Stadium. That would be the case for me, but I had somebody who was like, it's the best Georgia game I've ever been to. And I'm kind of sitting there like, I was blessed enough to be able to go to Georgia, Ohio State. So I can't pick Ole Miss over that one, but it was still pretty special. Probably
Yeah.
my favorite in Sanford for several reasons. Um, but moving on a little bit, from specifically on the field stuff, I guess, in dating with like Ole Miss. Um, what's the biggest advantage of Georgia having this bye week where we have it? What's so big about this bye for Georgia?
I mean, I think it's massive. Obviously, to get healthy, the obvious answers stick out. To get healthy, to game plan against a very talented Florida team. I know I sound like Kirby Smart, and even when Florida's record doesn't show it, they're still a great team. They're still an SEC matchup, and I think this bye week comes significantly in the right place because of the firing of Billy Napier. People call me crazy, but if Billy Napier was the head coach at Florida to this day and going into the Georgia game, I would honestly feel better about Georgia's chances. And that's because we haven't seen what their interim coach is going to do. Like, we don't know how to game plan for this. So having an extra week to look at Florida's tape, look at their how they game plan with this, how they will game plan. It's kind of all speculation, but I think you need that extra week. So I think that's massive. I think their interim coach, I can't remember his name, but he's their running back coach. The only success we've seen big game wise from Florida is that Texas win this year. And what they got to was they got back to the run. Jaden Ball is one of the most elite rushing running backs in the SEC and maybe college football when he is in full force. And that's what got them the win against Texas. So if he's the running backs coach and they got Jaden Ball, man, they're going to hand it off to him a lot. And our rush defense has been very, very strong. It's been probably the strongest point of our defense thus far through 2025. So we can key in on it, but we've got to figure out, how much they're going to go to the rush attack because they still have DJ Lagway at quarterback, and he terrifies me. I don't care if he hasn't had the greatest season, and all that preseason hype that he was maybe expected to live up to has not planned out or worked out in the way that Florida and he wants it to. But I still think he's a dangerous quarterback. And the biggest thing for me with this Florida team is they've got the revenge aspect. With Georgia, anybody that plays us, we're going to have the target on our back. It's their Super Bowl because we're Georgia, and we've beat all these teams for so many consecutive years, like Tennessee, like Auburn, Florida, like eight out of the last 9 meetings we've won. So it's, they've got the revenge aspect. And last year, especially in this Florida game, Carson Beck played terrible. Florida had every right to win that game if DJ Lagway stays healthy. So he maybe come into this game with, a point to prove. So I think this bye week is perfectly timed. And looking at the rest of our season, not just Florida, I think it's also perfectly timed. I think we've got through the main gauntlet of our schedule between Alabama and Ole Miss. We thought Texas would be better. They're not near as good. I'm still scared of Texas because they have all the talent in the world, and it hasn't clicked. So there's still something that there's this unknown that if it clicks, Texas can be the Longhorns that we expected them to be in the off season. So I think just getting healthy and getting our minds right, especially after some emotional wins, some come from behind wins, and even a loss to Alabama. This Georgia team is finding their stride, and this bye week is going to give them time to really perfect that stride, if you will.
Absolutely, I agree. And you mentioned that it might give Florida a little bit of a benefit for us to not really know what to expect from the interim. I think that's totally a fair point. I think whenever you don't really have film on, especially an entire team, you don't know what to expect. Obviously, it didn't really work out the way Billy Napier wanted it to, but I think that's a great point. We just don't know what to expect overall. What they'll bring in 2 weeks. Um, Moving on a little bit from I guess the rest aspect and kind of Florida themselves. Back to our talent, our defense, our roster.
Lost you there
Our
for a sec. You
defense, and
there?
it's the craziest thing. Like we allow 3 straight touchdowns to Tennessee. We stop them one drive, and then they don't
Mhm.
score for like another 2 quarters. Alabama, they scored every single drive. We stopped them on a drive, and they didn't score again the rest of the game, I don't think, if I remember correctly. And
Yeah.
then last week, obviously, they score the first 5 drives. We stopped them one single time, and they do nothing the rest of the game. So I guess my point was we find one stop and then we just lock in and shut down the other team. I just want to get your thoughts on that. Like why is it that we just every single time it's just one stop, and then everything just magically seems like it's solved. There's no issues following that one single stop. It's so weird. I can't explain it, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I think it's a momentum thing. I think it's getting the monkey off the back type of thing. I mean, you go back to the Auburn game, and Auburn was moving it at will, like you talked about, and we get the fumble on the goal line, and it just kills their momentum. And there's more to it than just the defense starting to show up. I think that's the bulk of it. But Hugh Freeze also just completely lost confidence in his team, so I think that answers part of the question for the Auburn game. But you know, the Ole Miss thing, it was absolutely wild to see the response in the fourth quarter.
It
Like,
was just an absolute, just
yeah,
complete momentum shift. I've never seen anything like it ever.
no, I haven't either. And like you, everybody talks about these halftime adjustments, and then Kirby starts getting asked about all these halftime adjustments in press conferences, and then halftime adjustments became one of the talking points of the college football universe last week because of what Georgia has done this season. And everybody's like, dude, halftime adjustments don't really mean anything. Like, it's not like we're adjusting anything. We're adjusting throughout the entire course of the game. And I think you saw that evident in against Ole Miss. We come out of the half, Ole Miss gets the ball and they score on the second play from scrimmage. Like those halftime adjustments were, it seemed non-existent. And then Ole Miss continued to fire on all cylinders, and we kicked a field goal or whatever it was. And then we finally adjust in the fourth quarter. So I think those adjustments are always going on. But it really is so weird that the momentum switch and something just clicked. And I think, you know, the crowd noise was a big, big factor in that. I think the Georgia fans as a whole felt that we had Ole Miss kind of on their heels. Maybe they were about to play a little prevent defense, and maybe they were about to just start running the ball, and all of these kind of factors. And I think the crowd picked up on it, which was really cool to see
I
because
agree.
it started going bonkers. But that first third down stop when we forced them to go 3-and-out, that was the soundest I've seen our defense play 3 straight plays
Yes.
all year long. Like we have seen flashes of this defense looking, great, like we thought they would. But 3 straight plays, it's crazy that just 3 straight plays, but we really haven't seen it. And I think that drive just completely it clicked. And I think you've got a leader like CJ Allen, who's the quarterback of the defense, and he kind of took advantage of that moment and that room and that defense. And he was like, boys, we just got to stop. We can do it. It's not like it's impossible like we thought it was. Like let's hunker down and let's get it done one more time. In the wise words of Larry Munson, a little paraphrased right there. But I'm I'm stoked about that defense, man. I just want that if all I can ask is we can get that stop earlier in the game. So then it just clicks from then on. Like, let's get it in the first quarter on the first drive, when we've got the defense out there, and let's just build off of that momentum for the rest of the game. I've said it now like 3 times, but let's play 4 full quarters of defense. I'm really looking forward to what this defense can do and getting into form throughout the rest of the season and put 4 quarters together.
Absolutely, I agree. And I wanted to, you actually brought up some point in there that made me think about this. I want to read the play by play. So Ole Miss scored on their first 5 drives and then didn't score again the rest of the game, like I was kind of getting at. Georgia scored every single drive. Brett Thorson is not a big fan of Gunnar Stockton right now because he's not able to do his job. But I did want to
Yeah.
read this. So this is Ole Miss' first 5 drives. Touchdown, 65 yards. Touchdown, 65 yards. Touchdown, 75 yards. Touchdown, 75 yards. Touchdown, 75 yards. And I mean, they were just demolishing us. Quite clearly as those stats show. Hit the fourth quarter, 3 plays, punt, 0 yards. 3 plays, punt, 1 yard. Then they had 5 plays, 12 yards, turnover on downs. Georgia wins the game. So I think if anything, that shows that Georgia is the most resilient team in college football. Um, sometimes I just sit there. I don't know how we get it done. It's pretty insane how we just sometimes just find a way. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Wow, I'm still kind of getting over the fact that we won the game the way we did. It was amazing. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to be there. As you said, the crowd really got into it. I think, and I was telling you this yesterday. I feel that it wasn't quiet early on, but it didn't feel like just a rocking environment. But once we got like that first third down into the fourth quarter, I think the fans kind of realized like, hey, we have an impact here, and it was just deafening. It was an amazing experience. Something I'll never forget. Shifting a little bit away from that, though, we saw Lawson Lucky have one of the best receiving games for any Georgia player since Muhammad Massaquoi scored 3 touchdowns in 2008 against Georgia Tech. But that obviously directly credit to Lawson Lucky, great game. But it kind of brought a broader point. It brought a broader point up to me. What does Georgia's tight end room as a whole bring to the table? We saw Oscar Delp had that great catch and run a couple weeks ago against Kentucky. We really saw the speed that he truly has. We've seen some glimpses of Elias Williams. We saw him at the end of the Kentucky game. We've had a couple plays where we've thrown the ball up to him. Just overall, what does Georgia's tight end room bring to the table?
I think we talked about this a little bit last week, and I've talked about it with so many people about how we need to get the tight ends involved. And finally, it happens. And it was like an answered prayer. They've been largely absent. And I think the most interesting part about it is Georgia fans have this notion that we have to find the next Brock Bowers. That's not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. He is a specimen. He's a freak of nature. He's a generational talent. And generational talent gets tossed around probably too often, but he is a generational talent. He is one of the most magnificent college football players we will ever see, especially at that position. So we don't have to ever find another Brock Bowers. Like, let him be the legend that he is. But if we have a tight end room by committee that can fill those shoes, then we can answer that prayer. We can answer that question of having the next great tight ends at the University of Georgia. And I think Delp and Lucky are a great tandem piece to get it going. I mean, we saw Elias Williams, I think, through the first 5 games was like our 5th leading receiver above Lucky and Delp. I think it was before the Kentucky game, before Delp had that long breakaway run inside the 5-yard line. And sorry, I'll turn off my notifications. I know that dinged on you. But no, it was I mean, Lucky has always been that special talent. Delp has always been that special talent. I think we're seeing some flashes of Elias Williams. I want to get Riddell in there too. I think he's a specimen. That dude is like cut like from diamond. He is built like a beast. And it's awesome to see too. I gotta throw this in there. Lawson Lucky's story is amazing. He is one of the most genuine dudes, and his brother is disabled. And every single touchdown he scored, he points at his brother, and it's cool to see because 2 of them were in the opposite end zone, on the opposite side from the scoreboard. But one of them was in that end zone where his brother sits, right there on the wall, and he got to point at him and share a special moment with his mom and his little brother. So what a moment for Lawson, and what so cool to see him have that shining moment. And back to the real question of what we can do with that tight end room, dude. We saw it. We saw it. I like that they are the most effective tight end group in the country, I think. I mean, there's obviously some great talents at tight end around the country, like Stowers at Vanderbilt. He's been awesome this year. But those 2 dudes together, in whether it's the screen game, whether it slants over the middle, whether it's a deep post route, whether it's a 50-50 ball, they have the tools in their tool belt to do anything and everything that they want against any defense in the SEC and beyond. So I'm excited to keep them involved in this offensive scheme, in this offensive game plan. And I hope this isn't just a one-off. I hope Bobo keeps finding them, because now we see Colby Young is most likely out for an extended amount of time. We got to keep these dudes involved. Dylan Bell had a great game. Zachariah Branch had a great game. I'm excited to see some of those others like London Humphrey, Sokovie White, Helton. But these tight ends, man, we got to get the ball in their hands. They're just playmakers, and I think they'll continue to do so throughout the rest of 2025.
Absolutely, I agree. How about Dylan Bell? That dude had an incredible game. I feel like he really caught a lot of crap from this Georgia fan base overall in the offseason and has just kind of proven most people wrong. I mean, he's played a great year. He's finally in his true form, his true position, and I think it's really benefited him a lot. Whereas he had to play out wide in a lot of cases when that's not really who he is as a wide receiver.
Yeah,
But it's great to see him finally in full form. Um, as you mentioned, that's such a cool story about Lawson Luck. It's great to have players like that who are just as good or better people repping the G. So that's always an exciting thing. Always loved how Todd Monken used the tight ends, and if we can get back to that with Bobo, that would be awesome. And I'm not trying to just throw that out there to start the coordinator controversy. Mike Bobo called a near perfect game. It was beautiful. So I have no complaints there, but it's something to mention that while yes, Monken did have Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, the way he utilized his skilled tight ends was pretty awesome. I think Georgia can do a lot of the same.
yeah.
But my final question to you: where do the Dogs go from here? What's kind of your prediction for the rest of the regular season? And how do you feel about Georgia moving forward?
We talked about it a little bit. This bye week comes at the perfect time. I see it seems like our offense is firing on all cylinders. I think, like I said, the gauntlet of our schedule is largely past us. I mean, we still have the SEC to go against, but I'll tell you what, the scariest games on our schedule are the ones away from Athens. Like this game in Florida, I'm terrified of because of the whole interim thing. I feel like any team that goes in with an interim coach, they want to win one for their guy who's probably been in the system for just as long as their former head coach. They want to win just to show that they're not completely down and out, that their season's not a deadbeat protocol, and they're down and out basically. So I'm terrified of Florida. Man, I'm terrified of Mississippi State. Jeff Lebby is one of the great offensive minds in the SEC and maybe the country. I think he's got a special talent at quarterback. I think he's got some great receivers around him, and I think Mississippi State's offense has proven that they can play with the big dogs. I mean, they got that win over Arizona State. They were 4-0 or 5-0 through their first 4 or 5 games. They're a good team, and yeah, they haven't had the best of luck against some of these juggernaut SEC opponents that they've played as of recent. But man, they're a good team, and I'm scared of them. And then Tech, dude. Tech on the road in the Benz. Whew. I mean, I think Duke was the hardest game on their schedule this past weekend for the rest of the year. They should be 11-0 coming into the Georgia game. This could be a top 5 matchup. When was the last time Georgia versus Georgia Tech was a top 5
Long time,
matchup?
long
I
time.
mean,
It's been 11 years since it's been ranked.
yeah,
That's how long it's been since it's been just like a genuinely good game in that
yeah.
rivalry.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Tech, even with a loss to us, is playing in the ACC championship. If they're 11-0 going into that game, they're playing in the ACC championship, and they're probably a college football playoff team, and we might have to see them again, which would be nuts. But I think they're a really good team, and going on the road, I know it's not in Bobby Dodd, but I don't think that's too frightening of an atmosphere to go into. But going to the Benz, we've played well in the Benz, so I kind of like that better than playing in Bobby Dodd. But I mean, those 3 games really terrify me. I'm obviously still scared of Texas. Charlotte should be, a hopeful easy win, but get right game before Georgia Tech. But Texas is maybe going to figure something out. That unknown, like I talked about, scares me just because they have all the talent in the world, and it just takes one day for it to click, and they could be a rock star team. So just because we've maybe gone through the gauntlet between Ole Miss being a top 5 team when we played them, Alabama just being Alabama, Tennessee and Neyland, Kentucky's always a trap game. All of those things kind of come together to create this hard slate of games that we've had as of recent. But I'm getting more and more confident as we go. I think our best football is still in front of us. I'll leave it at that. I think that's what the most positive thing about this Georgia team is right now. I think we've got so much left to prove, and I think we're on the road to really be one of those juggernauts in college football in a year when there maybe isn't that dominant force, that elite team that is just heads above like we were in 21 and 22, or like Ohio State last year come playoff time. Like Yeah, Ohio State is undefeated and they just continually rep out wins. Indiana has proven themselves as a serious contender. Bama is obviously right on the right track. Oregon's still out there, but it still feels like that playing field is pretty even, and that's a result of the parity of college football today. But I think Georgia is truly a top 5 team. I think we can really get out there and make some waves as come November and the latter half of this 2025 season.
You there?
Yeah, you got me.
Okay, yeah, sorry, it glitched out for a second.
No, you're good.
Um, well, Hammy, thank you so much. I appreciate you as always coming on the show. Go Dogs, great win.
Yeah,
And let's close out the year strong. I know we mentioned we got definitely some trap games for sure, but um, I believe in these guys. I know they've got a lot of talent, and I know that they've got something that maybe last year's Georgia team didn't have as much of, and that's true connection and resilience. A Kirby Smart team has always had it, and we saw it at times last year for sure. Um, but it wasn't really the biggest thing about last year's team, and this year it is probably the single biggest thing that we see in this team is true resilience and true connection.
yeah,
But anyway, thank you for coming on as always.
yeah, man. Go Dogs. Hey, are you heading down to Jacksonville for the Georgia
I
Florida
will
game?
be heading down to Jacksonville. Yes, sir.
Good stuff. Love it. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. I think Florida's going to come in with something special, but I think, like we said, these Dogs, we're getting more and more confident in them. So go Dogs, man. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. Go Dogs. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Saturday in Athens GA podcast. This is the first time that I've really live streamed this at all, so hopefully this goes well. To my Instagram audience, welcome. Glad y'all are here. Hope the sound is working out. Looking at these comments right now, hopefully everything is good. Just let me know if y'all have any like live questions or anything you want to submit. That's also good. But yeah, just kind of trying something new here. But let's see how it goes. Let's have a great time. I got a little bit of a recap on Georgia Ole Miss. I've also got some stuff around the country for this week since Georgia doesn't have a game. I'm going to look at some injuries. We had obviously the unfortunate loss for the rest of the year of Colby Young. But anyway, again, just excited to have you guys on, and we're going to go and jump right into it. So obviously, what an incredible win against Ole Miss. I know for sure. For me, that was, I would say, the greatest atmosphere I've ever seen in Sanford Stadium. Um, and I think the Alabama game was probably louder consistently, but once we got that one stop on Trinidad Chambliss, who, by the way, is an incredible football player, I must give him credit. Once we finally stopped them one time, we shut them down the rest of the game. So I'll get a little bit more into that in just a minute. But again, loudest game in Sanford Stadium history during the fourth quarter, I would 100% say, without a shadow of a doubt. We like I said, we needed one drive to gain defensive momentum, and it's a weird trend. I feel that every single time Georgia gets just one stop, they lock in and play a flawless defensive football game from that point out. For the most part. Tennessee, they scored 3 straight touchdowns. We stopped them one time, and they didn't score for another 30 minutes of game time. Auburn, we punched the ball out. They didn't score again. Alabama, we stopped them one time. They didn't score again. And this is sort of the trend that we've seen with Georgia's defense. And then Ole Miss, obviously, they score 5 touchdowns to start the game, stop them 1-3 and out. They do nothing the rest of the game. I think it goes to show that Georgia's so resilient, and Georgia will always find a way to win. And if you're a Georgia fan, that's a beautiful thing. No matter how good or bad you feel your team is, how well they're performing, underperforming, overperforming, whatever, they're going to show up and they're going to give you all you got or all they got. But here's some stats on that game. Georgia scored 17 in the fourth quarter and had 205 total yards. Ole Miss had 0 points and 13 yards for the entire fourth quarter. So, again, this comes down to the fact that Georgia plays for 60 minutes. And if you want to beat Georgia, you're going to have to play for 60 minutes. I mean, it's really as simple as that. One idea that Kirby and Joel Klatt kind of threw out there that I thought was hilarious, we are hard to kill. Georgia is a hard team to kill. It's very tough to get Georgia where you want them and finish the drill in the fourth quarter. Typically, it doesn't happen. Obviously, it happened earlier against Alabama. But when we play teams that aren't wearing crimson, we find a way to win every single time. It's quite simply the way it's been for a while now, and I don't see it stopping. Lane Kiffin called the loss to Georgia. He called it a slow death. A lot of people are now coining this as the Kirby Death March, which I think probably Kirby should try to get that trademarked. I think that's an awesome term. He gained 34 first downs. Georgia gained 34 first downs throughout the entire game. They got 12 in the fourth quarter, which I thought was a pretty great stat. I think Ole Miss got a single first down in the entire fourth quarter. But Georgia, again, really played well through the stretch, down the stretch. Gunnar Stockton deserves serious Heisman consideration. And I know that a lot of people hear that and think that that's just bias. But I do want to go over this man's stats. Gunnar Stockton's stats, just in general, are great, and I'll read over them in a moment. But especially against top 25 teams, against ranked teams, he's balling out. He's doing everything that he's being asked to do, and then some. His Heisman odds have just risen from a five-way tie for 7th all the way up to 5th. He was 25-1. Now he's 12-1. In this particular game against Ole Miss, he had, I believe, an 83 or 84% completion mark. He went 26 for 31. He had 348 total yards and 5 touchdowns. 4 of them were passing. 1 of them was rushing. And here's another interesting stat from Gunnar Stockton so far this season. Gunnar Stockton has more rushing touchdowns than half of the starting running backs in the NCAA. Go look it up. Go fact check me. And then he's also got the most rushing touchdowns of any SEC starting quarterback. So Gunner's a dual threat. Gunner's legit. He will hurt you with his legs. And I can imagine that he's not a very fun player to tackle. He's big, and he does not go down easily. He does not go down without a fight. There have been several times now that our freaking quarterback has hurt a defensive player from how hard he has hit him. So, and I don't think most teams can say that about their quarterback. We've got a lot of grit, a lot of leadership out of Gunnar Stockton. He's just a baller. He's a baller. I'm so glad to have a guy like Gunnar leading the Dogs. And obviously we saw the collapse from Carson Beck at Miami this past Friday. He threw 5 interceptions. One of them got called back due to roughing the passer. But all in all, I think the trade-off of Gunnar for Beck, or however you want to word that, has worked pretty well for Georgia. But back to that ranked game average for Gunnar Stockton. He's averaging 74% completion, 74.4% completion, 281 yards total, and 3 total touchdowns per game against ranked competition. Those are all SEC teams. Each were top 15 or top 17 really when we played them. He only had 1 turnover, and it was a strip fumble against Tennessee. He's thrown 1 interception on the year, which I think is a phenomenal stat, no matter who you're playing or no matter the circumstance. To only throw a single interception in 7 games now is pretty incredible. But Gunnar's done a great job again. He's just taken down what was the number 5 team and is now the number 8 team, I believe. He beat Tennessee when they were ranked 15th. Now they're 18th. Lost to Alabama, but still played a fairly good game, in my opinion, against them. And now they're up to 4th in the country. So I think we should all be very lucky, very glad, very blessed to have a guy like Gunnar Stockton leading Georgia football from a player standpoint, but also from the fact that he's just such a good man to have leading that offense. It's really encouraging to watch the progression week to week from him, but also everyone on this team. That's one thing that I do love about this Georgia team is Georgia finds a way to improve every single play, every single game, every single week. And I know sometimes that's painful. I know sometimes it might take 2.5 quarters, 1.5 quarters to see it really happen. But I've really enjoyed watching the way that Georgia gets better every single day. One thing that you always want to look for as a football program or as a football coach is, hey, can my guys get 1% better every single day? And I think Georgia really has always embodied that under Kirby Smart, but especially this year. I see continual growth. And hey, credit to Mike Bobo, because I feel like he's the same way. I feel like that dude has so far called a better game each game going forward for the most part. I know he's had his moments. He called a flawless game. We'll get into that in a minute. Going to move pace a little bit, though. Lawson Lucky had a day. Lawson Lucky, 3 receiving touchdowns. That's the most that any Georgia player has had since 2008 when Muhammad Massaquoi went for 3 receiving touchdowns against Georgia Tech. And the point this brings for me, and I'm sure most of us, is use the tight ends more. And I believe that Bobo is trying to do that a little more. We've seen Elias Williams in a good bit more in more important situations. At least in the Auburn game, we saw him get a good bit of time, I thought. I believe he showed some flashes of talent. Oscar Dupp, obviously, is a very solid player. And we all saw that catch and run that he had against Kentucky. Clearly, he's very fast, very athletic, hard to take down. But Lawson Lucky just had one of the best tight end games I've ever seen from a Georgia player. And I want to give, again, Bobo credit for the fact that a lot of that was scheme work. He schemed up a perfect game to get our tight end the football. Our tight ends really, but really specifically Lawson Lucky the football. And Lawson answered when his number was called. So credit to him. I'll be releasing another segment later where I interview the Hammy Show. And we sort of discuss Lawson's really cool, I guess, induction to Georgia football, the legacy that he has there. He's got a really cool story with his siblings. Got a comment right here. Sure seemed like Gunner's release was quicker than it had been since the beginning of the season. I think that's supposed to say Pug. Pug has the same speed. Wind up much quicker. I would agree with that. So I've always thought that when Gunner got the ball out, the bullet that he threw was pretty comparable to Pug. I thought when the ball left his hand, it definitely a very fast football. Had a lot of zip on it, but it was always a matter of that windup took forever. That wasn't really an issue with Puglisi, but I did see quite a few times. I don't know if I have this written on here today, but I know that Gunner's release definitely looked like he had a little more zip on it. It looked like he was flicking the wrist a little more. Just looked more effortless from Gunner overall out there, and it's encouraging when you can see the mechanics of a quarterback kind of develop as the season goes on. If Gunner can really work on getting this generally slower release to be quicker and more effortless, I think he could be a really, really scary player. And I believe that he could really garner some national attention for Heisman, more so than he already has, because, again, a lot of this is a bias. I'm a biased Georgia fan. I admit that. But it's objectively true that Gunner Stockton should be very much considered for this MVP, or not MVP race, for this Heisman race. He should be in deep consideration for the Heisman Trophy, or to at least appear in New York in December. Our defense needs to lock in. Quite simply, our defense needs to lock in. I thought our tackling was really poor overall. And as I already mentioned, it got better in the fourth quarter. That fourth quarter was awesome. Why can't we just play a fourth quarter of football the way we play on defense? Why can't we transfer that to the rest of the game? I don't know. I'm not sitting in the meeting rooms, but I'm telling you, the tackling was pretty abysmal. I thought Dalen Everett missed a pretty bad tackle in open field. Obviously, it's tough to make a tackle like that. I'm not trying to discredit how tough of a situation that is, because it is. To be playing a really talented team like Ole Miss with a lot of talented skill players, and he's got quite a few yards on you, and then he makes a move, it's tough to make that tackle. But, I mean, still no excuse. You got to make those. I think Ole Miss was a really good team and a really good test. I think it would be unfair to not give them credit for the fact that I think Ole Miss will probably have a really good rest of the year. I think they'll probably win out. I don't, off the top of my head, know exactly what the rest of their schedule looks like, but I think it's pretty good chance that they'll win out or have a good rest of the year. I'll go over their game this weekend against Oklahoma in just a few minutes. Another thing that I noticed, though, we played very far off. Our corners played very far off, gave a lot of cushion early in the game. I believe we just didn't want them trying to, go deep and establish an intermediate to deep passing game early on. And it worked out. Obviously, I don't think it's really annoying to give them the yards that we did early on. When I say it worked out, I mean in the end we won the game, so that's what matters. But still, it's very frustrating to see how far off these guys were playing, and I don't know, they're getting very many completions off of it. We'll go into Trinidad Chambliss's completion percentage in just a moment, but it was looking pretty good there for him for a minute. He started off the game pretty well. What do I think about us versus Georgia Tech? I don't think Georgia Tech has really played a good team all year. Their statement win at the moment is Clemson. I'm not saying that Georgia Tech isn't good. I'm not saying that they won't be a test. I believe that Mercedes-Benz will probably have a lot more gold and blue than it will red and black, just because of the fact that it is technically a Georgia Tech home game, so those tickets will go to those fans. I'm sure we'll show up and we'll have an impact on that game, but that's kind of what worries me more now, is I know they'll have a little bit of momentum heading into it at least, but I don't think they're as battle-tested as Georgia is. I don't think they're as good as Georgia is. I do know that Brent Key has been building that team to try and beat Georgia. I know that Buster Faulkner can expose Georgia and has exposed Georgia. I still like Georgia's odds in that game. I think Georgia probably still wins that game by at least a touchdown, but I still think that it will provide some challenges for Georgia. But I'm not as worried about that one, even as I was Ole Miss. I was definitely worried about Ole Miss there for a minute before the game and during the game, obviously. But heading into this Tech game, I feel like I'm more excited than nervous. I feel like it's been a long time. I know it's been a long time since this has been a ranked game. I don't know when the last time it's been potentially a top 5 game. I know that number 9 Georgia played number 16 Georgia Tech back in 2014. That's off the dome. But I don't know the last time it's been a top 5 game. It's going to be, I would love for College Game Day to be there. I don't know if they'll go and use a show on a Friday because it will be Black Friday. Speaking of which, that's a question I want to ask y'all real quick. What do we think about that? What do we think about Georgia Tech pretty much being a Friday game from now on? I kind of like it. If it would be one of those things where it would keep College Game Day from coming to us, then I'm a little less crazy about it. I think it could be a cool tradition overall, though. How do I feel about Bobo? Do I trust him more after Ole Miss? If so, is it for good? I feel like Mike Bobo has called a good season of football. I think I put this in my initial thoughts following the game, but we can go over it real quick. I think, obviously, the first 2 games doesn't really matter. It's Marshall and Austin Peay. He called a great game against Tennessee. He called an okay game against Alabama. I'm still very critical of the personnel choices there. I'm critical of, frankly, putting in Cash Jones on 4th and 1. I know it's a whole tempo thing. I know he was in the game on 3rd down, but still, I'm critical of the 3rd and 9 screen call. I'm critical of a lot of decisions in that game. I think it ultimately comes down to Kirby Smart, though. But back to the main point, though. He called a great game against Tennessee. He had a bad drive or 2 in there, though. I think he called an okay game against Alabama. Called a good game against Kentucky. Not that crazy of a game, though. I think he called an all right game against Auburn. I think he called a phenomenal second half against Auburn. And I think he called a near flawless game against Ole Miss. I would not be upset to see Mike Bobo come back again next year for Georgia. Obviously, sometimes those screen tendencies drive me crazy. Sometimes running it straight up the middle, the exact same play, back to back, does drive me a little crazy. But overall, he hasn't really had that bad of a tendency with that. And overall, he's called really good football. The issue with this team right now is not Mike Bobo. Maybe it was heading into the year. Maybe that's what it felt like. It's not right now. Mike Bobo is not what's holding this football team back. I have loved Glenn Schumann as a linebacker coach historically, and I've loved the way he recruits. But even the linebacker play has dropped off a little bit in my eyes. I see a lot. I'm a former linebacker. I don't claim to be an expert, but I know the position well enough. And I know that at the collegiate level, we should not be giving into eye candy in the backfield. We should not be giving into pulling guards in the pass game. We should not be getting fooled on these simple play action boots. And we are time and time again. I think a lot of it's coaching, honestly. I think the talent's there. Georgia has a higher blue chip ratio on this team than they did on either of the past 2 national championship teams. So there's not a talent excuse in my eyes. I think some people could say, hey, we don't have a Nakobe Dean. We don't, but C.J. Allen's a smart player and he's a good football player. Same deal goes for Raylan Wilson. We've got a Chris Cole. We've got a Justin Williams. We've got all these players, and we continue to make pretty fundamental mistakes in the linebacker position. So I think more of our issues this year are due to Glenn Schumann, and we just start off flat defensively. I don't think we're very creative with our pressures. I think it really took the crowd getting into it and a drive, a one quick stop to get some true momentum to finally shut them down. We can't win a national championship if we're going to not play defense for 3.5 quarters. And it starts with the defensive coordinator. And that's nothing personal against Glenn Schumann, because he's done a lot of good for the University of Georgia, but he's kind of losing me. And I feel like he's losing a lot of this fan base. And I feel like, based off of the comments I've read, based off of the feedback from Georgia fans, Mike Bobo is not where the frustration's at right now. Mike Bobo has really flipped the script so far this season. Could he screw that up these next couple games? Yes, but I don't think he will. I think he has too much talent to go further and just make fans hate him again. Obviously, some fans are going to hate Mike Bobo no matter what, and I hate it. After the Tennessee game, halftime of the Tennessee game, I got a comment that said, "Bro, Bobo knows 4 plays. Fire Bobo." And I'm just sitting there like, did you watch the same game that I did? Because that was a masterful play calling performance from Bobo. I think that's enough of that, though. We got a comment up here and it was talking about Georgia Tech. We were talking about this whole Friday, Saturday thing. Georgia Tech does not deserve Saturdays. I agree. If it were up to me, they'd be playing on ESPN 8 every week. Yes, it is a lower leg fracture for Colby Young. He will probably be out for the year. He will be out for the year. I will go over that in just a little bit. Really, the bottom line comes down to the pass rush is still horrendous, and we got to figure it out. Josh Horton, 81 on the defensive line. That dude came alive at that last drive at the end, batted it down. I mean, give him some more time. He looked great out there. I was very happy with what I saw out of Big 81 on the defensive line. It is very tough being a Georgia fan. We're too good. We win too many games. Hey, it's the most stressful wins you've ever seen, but it's still wins, so I can't complain too much. Again, Chambliss was a baller. I want to read you his stats real quick. He went 19 for 36. I think a lot of that kind of got skewed at the end of the game. If he didn't really have to kind of carry the team at the end and really step up due to several factors that I've already kind of gone over, probably would be a little better than 19 for 36. That's about 50% completion. Quick maths. He got 305 total yards and 3 total touchdowns. I think he looked really good, especially considering he was at Ferris State last year, never started in an away stadium like Sanford Stadium. I believe the stat they read on College Game Day was that all of the combined attendances of the schools he played at last year were 70,000. He just played in a stadium full of 93,033 people. So credit to him. He handled the test fairly well. They put up 35 points. I think Lane Kiffin's got a dude heading forward. Final take from Ole Miss, though, is I think they're a good team, honestly, and they'll probably be in the playoff unless they drop more than one more game or if they have another bad loss, then they won't be in the playoff. But I think I'm not saying we'll see them again, but I'm saying they will probably have a pretty good rest of the year. Great win, Go Dogs. That's kind of what I've got on that. But I want to move to around the country and kind of analyze what we got this week in college football. Obviously, we got the week off. We will play Florida and Jacksonville next week, next Saturday. That will be the last time that we play in Jacksonville until 2028. 2026, we'll be going to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and 2027, we'll go to Tampa. Then they will resume back in Jacksonville should that renovation go smoothly. We've got a good slate of really 3 really good SEC games, which could say a lot for this potential Atlanta race. Going to look first at Ole Miss at Oklahoma. It's number 8 Ole Miss at number 13 Oklahoma. I was really not impressed with Oklahoma so far. I don't think Auburn I'm not going to call Auburn a great football team. I think they're a good team. They just have no clue how to close out a game. Actually, I'm going to read this real quick. Looking forward to getting our revenge against Bama in the SEC championship. I believe it will happen, and it's what I want to happen. I said it from the beginning of when we lost them. I said I want those guys again in Atlanta because I know we didn't bring our best game, and I know that if we play them again, a rematch, historically we're 1-0 in rematches against Alabama. It bodes us well. I like the odds. I don't like the fact that we're cursed in Alabama or in Atlanta against Alabama, but I'd love to see them again. I would love to play Alabama once again this season. I think we really got a good chance if we see them anywhere for the rest of the year. But Oklahoma has not impressed me that much. Auburn really kind of took them to the wire. I think Auburn got hosed in that game realistically. I think Auburn, they got rigged on the pass interference. There was a clear fumble return touchdown they did not give to Auburn. On top of all this, there was the weird substitution rule, which I don't fully understand. I'm tired of dealing with the whole refs thing with Auburn. I know that Georgia got just as screwed as they did in that game, if not more. But I'll give them the credit that they definitely deserve to win against Oklahoma, and we're on the wrong side of some pretty bad calls. But I think OU is pretty overrated. We saw what happened when Mateer's not 100%. When Mateer's not 100%, I don't think Oklahoma's a very good team. Honestly, if Mateer is not on his A game, they're not legit. Quite simply, it all depends on the quarterback. Mateer's a baller. I have a lot of respect for him. Have a lot of respect for the way he plays. I think he plays like a true leader. He plays the quarterback position the way it was meant to be. You're not afraid of contact. You're going to throw some incredible passes. He can put zip on the football. He's again, great player. I'm not like a John Mateer fanboy or anything. I just think he's a very good football player. But they're not a good team when he's not on his full A game. So that's a very important distinction. Ole Miss, again, like I just got done saying, I think they're a great team. I think they went to the toughest place in the nation and put up a fight against Georgia and really looked like they were going to win for a while. They were up 9 early in the fourth quarter and just didn't hold on. And I don't credit that more to the fact that I don't think they're resilient. I just think that Georgia has absurd blessings with the amount of resilience that they have, if I had to word it some way. They did seem kind of rattled by the crowd at the end. Norman, Oklahoma is no Athens, Georgia. They're not going to face the same crowd challenges or the same atmosphere challenges that they had in Sanford Stadium, Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. Ole Miss is very talented. They're very well coached. I have a lot of respect for Lane Kiffin. Again, I'm a Georgia homer. Y'all know that. But I don't mind acknowledging some really true things and objective facts maybe about other teams, I think, or other players, I think, or coaches. I think Lane Kiffin's a really good coach. I think he knows what he's doing out there. I think he does a great job scheming things up. Yeah, I like Ole Miss's odds against Oklahoma. Oklahoma is favored by 4.5, but I'll call this game. I'll give you my official prediction in a few moments. Number 10, Vandy hosts number 15, Missouri for College Game Day. This is the first time that Vanderbilt has hosted College Game Day in how long? I don't even know. I know they were on a few weeks ago against Alabama, but I don't know the last time that College Game Day has actually come to Vanderbilt. Someone should look that up real quick and let me know. That's pretty insane. But I wanted to really give credit to two players. Ahmad Hardy we'll say two. Ahmad Hardy is a dog for Missouri. Yeah, for Missouri. I believe he's statistically up there as one of the top running backs in the country. I watched this dude the last couple weeks. I think he's great. He'll be playing on Sundays. He deserves a lot of credit for what Missouri has been able to do this year. Missouri, when you look at the resume, it's a pretty good resume. Like, they're undefeated outside of the 3-point loss to Alabama at home, and that was a last-second pick that kind of led to that. So I gave them a lot of credit for what they've been able to do. Vanderbilt, common opponent here. They lost to Alabama by 16, but it was in Tuscaloosa, and it was kind of a garbage time score, so I'll give them that as well. I really think that Vanderbilt, I have a lot of respect for Vanderbilt, and I say that currently Vanderbilt because Clark Lee has built a very good program. He was handed the crappiest team in college football. Vanderbilt had a lot of competition. They're in the SEC. Like, they're not your powerhouse. They are a project. And what has Clark Lee done? He's gone in and made them a top 10 team. That's insane to even be saying that Vanderbilt is the number 10 team in the country. If you told someone 3 years ago, that Vanderbilt was going to be number 10 in the country, hosting number 15 Missouri, and they were both going to come in with one loss, that one loss being to Alabama, you would be considered mentally ill if you read off that statement 3 years ago today. But it's completely the truth. And they've both done a good job this year. Vandy's favored by 2.5. I think that's probably a fair line. That's probably the fairest line that I've got on this list. But I'll give you my official call on that game in just a few moments. And here's the one that's really interesting to me. Number 20 LSU hosts number 3 Texas A&M. I'm not completely bought in. I'm sorry about this, Mike. It's really kind of driving me crazy. I'm not really bought in to A&M yet. I don't think that they have been super impressive. I know now here's what I'll give them credit for. They have a really good win at Notre Dame. I have a lot of respect for Notre Dame as far as the fact that they've got a lot of talent, and I think Marcus Freeman's a very good coach, very good man. Utmost respect for Marcus Freeman. He's got a good football team. If you've watched Notre Dame since those first 2 games where they lost to what was probably the number 1 team in the country for a while, Miami, and then they lost by a point to A&M, they've really run the table since then. Notre Dame literally fired a coach who has now just put up 42 whose team has now just put up 42 on A&M. I'll get to that in a minute. But I have a lot of respect for what Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman have been able to accomplish this year and just since Marcus Freeman's been there. But anyway, outside of that win against Notre Dame, I don't think that Texas A&M is that impressive or has done that much. They allowed 24 to UTSA. They allowed 22 to Utah State. They allowed 42 to Arkansas and Petrino, an interim head coach. Say whatever you want about him. Say whatever you want about that whole scenario. Arkansas is not a good football team. That's just objectively true. They should not be putting up that many points on number 3 teams in the country. But moving on to LSU. LSU was overrated, way overrated to start the season. When we looked at that first week, we had Texas and Ohio State, and then we had LSU and Clemson. And I watched those two games. I watched the entirety of LSU Clemson. I watched at least the first half, and then rewatched the second half highlights of Texas and Ohio State. And watching those games, it was kind of like I wasn't really sold on Arch, but I thought that he played well enough down the stretch. I also thought that Texas overall played well enough for me to say, don't drop Texas too much. They played a really good team in a really tough environment really early in the season. Obviously, they've had a couple bumps in the road since then, but I think that the other take I had was even worse than that. I said that LSU should go up a good bit, and then Clemson shouldn't really drop that much because those were two really good teams dueling it out. I was very wrong. Clemson's now 3-4. They've lost to Syracuse. They've lost to Georgia Tech. Obviously, they lost to LSU. And then they lost to somebody this past week. It was a horrific loss. If someone remembers who the team was, go ahead and link it down there. I can't remember 100%. Someone just said, I think A&M loses to LSU this weekend. I don't think that's too far-fetched. And I'll get to your Bobo comment in just a minute. I'm going to read through this last part about LSU, answer your comment, get into Pick'em. But again, I think they were overrated to start the season. They've had a pretty good defense overall and a really bad offense. They did, yes, it was SMU. That's correct. Thank you. I just couldn't remember exactly who it was. But LSU, again, pretty good defense so far this year. They put up 24 points last week despite having a horrible offense. I think Vandy's just kind of like that. I think Diego Pavia is just a good football player, and led them to putting up 31 and beating LSU. That all said, LSU has more talent than A&M. I don't think it's like a gigantic margin, but it's a pretty good margin, I'd say. They also have to play this game at Death Valley. A&M has not played at a Death Valley or anywhere even close to that capability all year. It's also a 7:30 kick. So I believe you just said this in the comments. Someone said, I believe A&M loses to LSU this weekend. I'll get into the rest of my picks in just a minute. I'll go ahead and say this one, though. I think LSU is going to upset A&M. I just don't think that A&M can keep this whole gig of, hey, we're undefeated, we're number 3. I don't think they can do it for that long. So I'll take LSU in that game. Do I think Bobo has been calling bad plays, or is it the players not executing? Because you see how good his play calling can be versus Ole Miss. Give me a specific game or games, and I'll answer that question a little deeper. Yes, that was also an ACC championship rematch from last year, which was a great game. Clemson ended up winning off of like a 57-yard field goal or something stupid like that. We're going to go ahead and get into these picks. Obviously, I just gave you number 20 LSU over number 3 A&M. I'll go ahead and officially confirm the other two. I'm going to say Ole Miss over Oklahoma. It's a 4.5 spread Oklahoma's way, so obviously Ole Miss, I've got them to cover. Vandy's favored by 2.5 against Missouri. I think I'll cover that. I got Vandy. Some of the other ones I haven't really mentioned, though. We've got number 18 Southern Florida over Memphis. Unranked Iowa State. Here's an upset. Unranked Iowa State over number 11 BYU. BYU's got to find some way. Again, sort of similar to A&M, like end the whole undefeated, we're good gig. Get it out the way. Number 23 Illinois over Washington. I was close on this one. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to say Washington because I know they kept it closer against Ohio State. Well, really, they were just as close with Ohio State margin, point differential-wise, as Illinois was. I don't know. It was kind of a tough pick, though. They were close with Ohio State for a minute. They're 5-2. It's at Washington. I think this one could go either way. I'll still take Illinois. I think they've got a good amount of returning talent and just overall more developed program at this moment. So I'll take Illinois. Iowa over Minnesota. Iowa's had a sneaky good year. I think they just beat Penn State by a point, 25-24, I want to say, but I'm not 100% sure. Fresno State over San Diego State Aztecs. Number 21 Cincy over Baylor. And then North Dakota State over South Dakota State. For some reason, they gave us an FCS game at the end. And it sounds crazy, but I will give them credit. It's 2 7-0 teams. It's North Dakota and South Dakota. I understand it. So, again, crazy, but I get it at the same time, if that somewhat makes sense. I'm going to move a little bit into battle bets. I have promoted it a good bit this year, but battle bets is kind of like this app where you take fake money, so like Monopoly money basically, on this app called Battle Bets, and you're throwing it onto real college football lines. So I just want to read you off some of the ones I took for this week. I said Syracuse plus 17.5 at Georgia Tech. I think it's at Georgia Tech. It might not be at Georgia Tech. But I think Georgia Tech still wins that game, but I feel good about Syracuse covering. Obviously, I just mentioned this. Ole Miss covers the 4.5 against OU. Bama money line against South Carolina. If you told me that game 2 months ago, I probably would have said it'd be a close game, and I probably wouldn't have even bet on a money line. But Bama's about to whoop up on South Carolina. And then I got Vanderbilt's money line against Missouri. It seems like the play calling was off versus Auburn, especially in the first half. Yes, so, and I think I went into a little bit of depth on this last week in the podcast. I feel that he was trying to sort of impose our will on the ground. Auburn's got a really good defensive line, really good run defense. And if we could really kind of impose our will early on and show, hey, we don't really care, we can run the ball on you, that's why you saw a lot of those inside zones early on, trying to really test their front seven. I think it's a good idea. I think it went on for too long as far as trying to do it over and over and over again. I think we got pretty shut down by that crowd and by that front seven to where it made us a little more, we had to be a little more simplistic with our offense. This being said, I think some of those annoying Bobo tendencies kind of came out during that game. So yes, I would blame that more lackluster first half against Auburn. I would put that one on Bobo. I would personally, but I'd also put it on the fact that the defense couldn't get off the field and give the offense a chance. I think before, maybe it was overall, but I know at least before the whole fumble deal, I know that we only had 12 plays on offense, and we were dominated in the time of possession. That cannot happen. That, especially on the road against a team hasn't beaten in 8 years. It's the longest standing rivalry in the SEC. It cannot happen. You cannot go down early like that in time of possession. And they got another comment. Don't get me wrong. In Kirby, I trust, and if he backs Bobo, so do I. Just wondering why we haven't been very efficient with how great of players we have. And my response to that would be, that's a good example of us not being efficient with great players, and I think we probably saw glimpses of it during the Alabama game. But again, I think we overall have been efficient with the good players that we have, and I think it's getting better and better and better. It's going to be tough to see who replaces Colby Young. Obviously, we didn't really have him for most of that game and did fine. So, I mean, hopefully Noah Thomas steps up. Hopefully one of these other guys that we aren't really expecting, maybe like a C.J. Wiley type, can step up as a true freshman and show Dog Nation what he's got. But I feel like we'll be just fine without Colby Young. We'll definitely see a drop-off, but I think we'll be okay, and I think we saw glimpses of that this week. But overall, I think Bobo's done a good job. I'd give him like a B+ for the year. I'd give him an A+ on the last game. I'd give him a B+ overall for the year, though. If we got any more questions on Bobo or Schumann or whatever, hit him up. Let's see. We got plenty of time to talk about it. But I'm going to go ahead while we're waiting on that. Moving a little bit to recruiting. Obviously, I don't report on recruiting as much as I used to. And it's tough because a player can say that he's going to be with Georgia and that he's going to build this class for Georgia. And then 5 minutes later, Ohio State throws in $1 million. Miami throws in $5 million. And this player that's supposed to be your legacy commit or your signature signing in your class is gone. Like, this is what NIL and portal and just the entire commercial state of college football has done to recruiting. Recruiting out of high school and recruiting out of the portal. It's been really negatively impacted, in my view, by NIL. By the way, if you're just joining, you got any questions, go and throw them in. I'll answer them as I can. But I do, again, want to give you a little bit of a recap on recruiting, or just a little bit of an update on how it's going so far. In the 2026 class, we are number 2 overall. We have 3 5-stars. Jared Curtis is one of them. Jared Curtis, I believe this was Brooks Austin said. Someone asked him about Georgia's quarterback outlook, and he answered Gunnar Stockton, then Jared Curtis. And someone in there said, what about Puglisi? I don't think guys like Brooks Austin are guys I really trust as far as analysis, but he was saying that he thinks as far as how talented Jared Curtis is, it's not a shot at Puglisi because he's very talented, but Curtis might be the next big guy at Georgia. Gut feeling tells me that Puglisi is going to go out there and ball out when Gunnar's done, so I would disagree with Brooks Austin on that, but he knows more ball than I do, so I'll give him credit on that. But I think the class that Georgia's put together for 2026 so far is up to Georgia standards. Could it be a little better? Yeah. It's still the number 2 overall class with 3 5-stars. I think we've got a good enough depth in there right now. We're probably not going to see too much more movement just because of the numbers there. 2027, we're number 6 overall, 3 4-stars and 2 3-stars. Not too much going on there. But I did want to make note of this because this was very cool. This happened over the weekend, maybe right after the Ole Miss game, or maybe the next day. But Asa Wall, who is from, oh gosh, I don't have the high school name up here, but some of y'all probably know it. But he's a son of the former Georgia running back JT Wall. He just committed to Georgia this weekend. He's pretty high up on Georgia's board in the 2028 class. 2028, first of all, sounds crazy that we're talking about 2028 players. It just sounds insane. It sounds insane that we're finally to the point where, like, yeah, we just got to recruit for the class of 2028. That sounds out of this world. But anyway, he's a sophomore. I think it's always great to get legacy guys. I would have loved to gotten Justice Haynes a couple cycles ago. Obviously, he went to Alabama and is now at Michigan. But I'm very glad to have a legacy guy back at Georgia. I think Lawson Lucky was another one of those legacy guys. His brother's going to be one of those legacy guys. But JT played as a junior and a senior at Georgia. He was a fullback, as I mentioned, and he was drafted in 2003 by the Steelers. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. I'm going to move on. Again, questions. If y'all are just joining, any questions y'all got, let me know. Sorry, this thing's kind of screwing up. There we go. But anyway, injury list, let's get into it. Colby Young, unfortunately, is at the top of this list. He's fractured his leg. He's going to be out for the year. No one's really come out and said, yeah, he'll be out for the year, but he's going to be out for the year. I would hope that he seeks a medical red shirt and comes back a year, but that's selfish. That's not what he should do. That's probably not what he's going to do. And I did want to read y'all this IG caption he put out, which was pretty special. It was quote unquote forever young, with that little happy tear emoji. Thank you, Dog Nation. So obviously, really sad to see how it's pretty likely ended for Colby at Georgia. I've always loved the guy. I thought he got dealt such a bad hand last year, and I was so glad to see him come back. And he's been balling out. He was Georgia's leading receiver. I think Zach Branch may have retaken that title, but he had 336 yards this year. He had several touchdowns. Like, he's been a fantastic player for us, and it's very unfortunate to see him go. But obviously, I'll always consider him a DGD. So, but we're going to move on from that real quick. Obviously, again, very sad, very heartbroken for the guy. But unfortunately, that is football. You'll see some of that. It sucks that it ended so abruptly, but he truly made an impact on and off the field for Georgia. He did so many positive things for us, so I'm forever grateful for guys like Colby Young. Kyron Jones is one of our starting safeties. He missed this game against what's up, y'all? How y'all doing? He missed the game against Ole Miss. Kirby has confirmed that he will be out against Florida as well. That's pretty much all we got there. Talon Taylor had the broken collarbone and had to get surgery on it. And I looked that up. That's pretty much, he's just probably going to get a rod and a couple screws in there, or he has gotten a rod and a couple screws in there. Obviously, he will not be playing against Florida. But it's pretty good, actually, that he got surgery, because it sounds like it speeds up that process, whereas you got to wait on it to naturally heal if you don't get the surgery. He got the surgery, so he'll probably be back sooner than if he didn't get collarbone surgery, clavicle surgery. But I did want to give a lot of credit to Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green. I love seeing Ernest Green back out there. It's been a minute since he's really gotten to play. I don't think he's been back since the Tennessee game, for understandable reasons, for good reason. But Ernest is a heck of a football player. He's also really intimidating. Like, if I can get a picture up here when I go back and re-edit this of Ernest Green, I will. Like, he strikes fear into other players, I'm sure. But he's had that lingering back issue for a while. And, I mean, truly, it's unfortunate. Because, I mean, again, I used to play football, obviously not at this level. But I've had injuries like that before where it's just like they don't go away. They'll get better, then they'll get worse. then they'll get better. It's just a never-ending cycle. And it sounds like that's kind of what this back has been for Ernest. Hopefully, this couple weeks off will help him be able to produce and be a productive lineman for the next couple weeks. I thought he played pretty well, but I was excited to see him back out there. So a lot of credit to him. A lot of credit to Monroe Freeling. This dude is playing on one foot still pretty much. He got rolled up on against Ole Miss and went out for a couple plays and came back in. Like later in the game, I was like, how is he back out here? Because he got re-hurt. Usually when you get re-hurt, that's never a good sign. But he got back out there, and I thought he played a really good game. I thought both those guys lit it up. I thought the offensive line, and I've been critical of Stacy Searles, and I still am, based off of a lot of X's and O's overall since he's been here, but mainly because of our depth and our lack of recruiting. Half of that's on him, half of that's on the current state of NIL. I've already discussed this a little deeper in another video. I believe it was last week, so if you want my full take on that, go check it out. But I think this line, I can give Stacy Searles a lot of credit for the fact that our offensive line has improved every single game. Having a mobile quarterback like Gunner does help you evade some of those sacks. You saw the same sort of trend with Stetson Bennett, but Ole Miss had 1 sack the entire game. And Ole Miss is by no means like an elite front seven, an elite quarterback pressuring defensive front, but our guys did a pretty good job in making sure that we kept Gunner off the ground. All right, that brings me to the last segment of the day. If we've got any questions in these comments again, I've got time to answer, so just let me know. But if not, this will be the last segment. So one thing I do on the YouTube every week is I do like a moment where I go over like a scripture or some sort of word of encouragement or some sort of faith note. And I'm gonna keep it quick today, but I wanted to bring y'all some of this to Instagram as well because, again, this is my first time bringing this episode to Instagram. But the idea of today is something I kind of learned recently and have kind of been, I think I've spoken on it a little bit on this channel, but it's the whole idea of presenting the truth of the gospel with grace. One thing that I kind of spoke on yesterday to some people and we kind of talked about was just like being kind to other people when you're trying to spread the gospel to them. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, this can apply to anything in your life. Like it's like being relatable to others and empathizing with others, and getting them to listen to your point of view or your argument, I guess, or whatever you're debating on. Empathizing and being a truly relatable and caring person instead of just like, I'm right, you're wrong. You'll get more people to listen to you and in a lot of ways be on your side. But one quote from the great Zach Cannon, and I'll send this to him, he'll love this. He said, you cannot guide somebody to somewhere that you have not been yourself. So I can't be, I guess, in terms of the gospel, be leading someone into the gospels or trying to teach them something, some sort of biblical Christian principle that I haven't myself either lived out or striven to reach or something of that nature. So, but again, this is one of those accounts where never get into anything political or super sensitive, but I will bring up my faith because I believe it's really important as Christians that we share this. I mean, I have a good platform to share it. But that's usually how I wrap up these podcasts on YouTube. Again, it's the first time I'm doing it on the gram, but that's all I've got. If we've got any questions here left in the comments, I'll answer them for a few minutes. If not, I'll go ahead and stop the recording on the YouTube side of things. Thank you for watching the podcast. As always, follow me on Instagram. Go subscribe to the YouTube. I'm also on TikTok and X, so go follow those, like those up. Thank you, and go Dogs.